Race politics. The race politics in New Zealand, I've got to say, is a warning to us in Australia. You know, we think, got activists saying, oh, we signed a treaty, we'll just, fix it, we'll live in harmony. No, New Zealand proves it will just make things worse. And today we saw the end of a mass march on the New Zealand Parliament of people protesting against the bill to change the interpretation of the Waitangi Treaty. They signed a treaty in 1840 already between Maori tribes and the British. Now, the ACT Party, which is one of the parties forming the coalition government over there, warns that this interpretation has gone completely off the rails. The modern interpretation has been changed so that citizens, well, they don't get an equal say anymore. You know, it's like 17% of New Zealanders who identify as Maori, they're now getting an equal say in the control of some resources like water to the 83% who are not, or that is how it was under the former Labor government. Now that's unequal, that's undemocratic. But as I say, that's the kind of race politics, that's what you get with race politics. It is undemocratic fundamentally. And we saw that already last week in the New Zealand Parliament when politicians in the Maori Party, having lost the Democratic vote, shut down that parliament with a war dance, trying to intimidate the head of that ACT Party, David Seymour. That was their protest against David Seymour's bill, which would give to New Zealanders the equal right as citizens, whatever their race, equal political rights. I thought that was a no-brainer. But anyway, those politicians complaining about that, doing a war dance instead, should have been mocked by the media, not treated seriously. I mean, why didn't some just change the music to show exactly what fools they really are when you don't have these war cries deafening you? But today again, these protesters against one person, one vote democracy were treated like an overwhelming force, 40,000 of them marching, we were told, 45, but although photos suggest that actually many, many fewer. And I didn't hear any real argument from them on why treating New Zealanders as individuals with equal rights is wrong.
Kill the bill. Kill it.
We don't disagree with it. It doesn't need to happen. It doesn't. Okay, we are a unity. We're one people. That's all we want.
Feel really frustrated and really angry, and it's not right. It's not right that what they're doing to our people, and it's not only for us, but for us as a country as well and as a nation.
So if they're one people, why not treat people as exactly the same? Why racial division? Talking against yourself, lady. Joining me is the man pushing this bill to take race out of politics, Regulations Minister David Seymour. David Seymour, thank you so much for your time. What did you learn from this protest today? And, by the way, from that ridiculous haka that was performed in your face last week?
Well, a couple of things. One is there are people who aren't prepared to have a discussion. They'd rather just assert. And I think really what happened last week with the haka on the floor of Parliament, it showed a total lack of understanding about how parliamentary democracy works. And not to go over it again and again, but basically not everyone can fit in the chamber, so people choose representatives to speak on their behalf. It's critical that they can speak fearlessly and without any intimidation or even attempted intimidation. Otherwise, you're taking away the voice of those people. So a total disrespect for democracy, a total disrespect for the voters by people who believe that they have the truth and the light and the rules needn't apply to them. I think that is a real shame. But ultimately, the great thing about democracy and an open parliament is that it gets to be seen by the people. And I suspect that while they feel they're getting a good run on social media and everyone likes them, actually they'll be finding that people aren't quite so sure in the long term if they want people who are incapable of having a civil dialogue as their representatives.
Well, that's in fact an obvious problem with race politics, that it takes away from democracy and brings in an implied use of force or intimidation. Now, today's protest, though, look, I'm seeing the most amazing figures. The police saying 40,000, sort of media report, 45,000 people marching there. I had a look at the photos and the footage of the crowd. That is absolutely ridiculous. Plus, I didn't hear a single good argument from the people being quoted from it. What did you learn from this?
Well, of course, the New Zealand government's very proud that we seem to be getting on top of monetary inflation. Our official inflation statistic for the last quarter was only 2.2%. However, it's been replaced by a new form of inflation, and that's crowd inflation, perpetrated not by our central bank, but by our media. Official estimates I've heard were 15,000 people were there, and that's credible. But I've just seen a media report that says 45,000. You wake up tomorrow, I suspect that by tomorrow morning the crowd will be 60,000, and by the weekend it'll be 80,000.
I think by the end of the year, every single New Zealander would have been there, including you. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. If it's only 15,000, they may as well have stayed at home. That's just showing how little support there is for it. But that said, the media is really inflating this, as you suggest, inflating it as a cause as well. So what's going to happen with this bill now? Like, the Prime Minister's only supporting you for the first reading in Parliament, is not going to support you, it seems, on the second reading to actually get it through Parliament. What's the best you can now expect with your bill?
Well, what's happened is this morning the Justice Select Committee has opened up for public submissions. I expect there'll be a great many of them, and that allows us to see the future of our country being put into the hands of the people who have to live under those rules. Because you see, just to try and get across how significant I think this is, for a very long time, a huge number of people have been told that unless you're a self-appointed expert, a treaty lawyer, an iwi leader, then you don't have a role to play in interpreting the Treaty of Waitangi. That belongs to someone else. In my view, we actually need to be a country that's modern and mature, multi-ethnic, has a place for everybody, and everybody has a right to have a say about its future. What we've just done today is open that whole debate about the treaty up to everyone, and allow everyone to have a voice. And if you doubt that, just look at the behaviour of my opponents. Even the ones who say that the bill won't go anywhere are determined not for it to be debated, because what they really fear is the idea that each of us, being thinking and valuing individuals, have a right to have a say about our own future. That's what we've really done today, and that's what they're truly opposed to. Yeah,
I had no idea that one person, one vote would be so radical, seen as so right-wing. I mean, my goodness, has everything changed. But did you ever think, with your own Maori ancestry, that, why don't you play along with this race politics too? I tell you, your life would have been a lot simpler. You would have got a lot more love from the media had you done that.
Well, I don't hide from my Maori heritage. That's how you know about it. But I also believe it's important to try and leave your country better off as a result of you being in politics. And if I've done nothing else today, I've put on the table as a legitimate view the idea that our treaty's a wonderful document, but you've got to actually read what it says. It says we all have the same rights and duties, and that is actually a fantastic foundation for any country. It's just not what we've been observing in recent times.
Well, David Seymour, I've long, as you probably know, admired you for your courage and your principle in this. I think it's a really important fight. Even if you lose, you win, because you've made it, as you say, a legitimate subject for conversation. And I think long term, it has to go your way. Might take a long time. You might not still be there, but I think this is really important. And I thank you for your effort. David Seymour, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Don't you think it's absolutely astonishing that a concept of one person, one vote, regardless of their race, of ancestry, history, relative, one person, one vote, is now seen as something so outrageous you've got thousands of people in the streets of New Zealand complaining about a guy that's got a bill to try to reassert that fundamental human right. And you've got a Prime Minister in New Zealand too gutless to say, absolutely, we're going to insist on that. And in fact, the same sort of stupidity is growing here, isn't it? Where somehow we're going to be divided by race with different rights. I'll have something more to say about that tomorrow. Really interesting interview coming up.